without further ado, let's just get right into it. And of course, this is the list that drives this spreadsheet, creates the brackets. So this is the complete list. Here it is in the bracket form. And so let's begin with our first matchup here. Let me zoom in. And so let's see. I think, unsurprisingly, the Egyptian pharaohs over the Mesopotamian king, even though he did claim to be the king of the universe. Historically, I don't think he's lived up to his claims. This is a tough one. So do you go with Queen Dido, or do you go with the Japanese, which had a not as long as the Egyptians, but an extremely long run as deifying their rulers? I think we're going to go with Queen Dido in this, simply because she's still revered today. And the Japanese emperor deification claim was repudiated after getting beaten by America in World War II. So yeah, let's just go with that. And should we take this all the way out? I think, again, I'm going to have to go with the Egyptians over Queen Dido. I feel a little bad doing that, being as she's one of the few females on the list. But going up against the Egyptians, I mean, they're going to be a tournament favorite, I feel. So hopefully you all agree with that. I am actually going to have to go with Cyrus the Great over the Buddha here. And I know that I said earlier the Buddha had 488 million followers. But Cyrus the Great, he's got a high status in the Jewish faith as well as in the Christian faith. Like evangelical Christians today consider Trump like a Cyrus figure, which is kind of strange because all he did was conquer the Republican Party and win an election. He didn't establish a worldwide empire. But you know what? I'm not going to get into that. But the point is, his influence is still just as strong and as widely received as ever. Like I said, he's still got a cult following in Iran as well, and he's known worldwide. So I am giving this to Cyrus the Great, and I think no surprise here, I'm also going to give this to Alexander the Great. And this sets up a very difficult matchup, and this is actually popular among historians. And I read a little bit into some of the arguments that people are making. And there's good arguments on both sides, to be honest. So Alexander the Great was very young when he was ruler of the empire and conquering. He actually conquered Cyrus's empire. Of course, he didn't defeat Cyrus himself, but it was the empire that he founded that was conquered. Alexander's influence is probably just as great, or nearly just as great. He founded all those cities, the libraries. He expanded Greek knowledge. He is accused of. So let's just say Cyrus is credited for being religiously tolerant, and Alexander is not. He pushed very heavily, like the Greek mythology, such as Zeus. So, in that respect, I would say that that kind of counts against him, and of course, we have no idea what it was like to live under Cyrus the Great, really being a religious minority, but historically, just the reputation is that he was tolerant of religious minorities. So let's see. Alexander's empire is said to have been slightly larger than Cyrus's. He actually did get into Egypt, which Cyrus did not in his lifetime. But I think I've been going with kind of the first. Cyrus, I believe, probably has a greater influence and is, I think, probably so I think all of those stuff combined, and just what I was talking earlier about with Cyrus, I think I'm going to give this to him over Alexander the Great. So that sets up another difficult matchup with Cyrus the Great over the pharaohs, Egyptian pharaohs. But I think, again, here, with the same logic that I used with the previous matchup, I'm going to have to go with Cyrus the Great again. So he moves into the Elite Eight, and he will face off against the winner of the bottom of this first division. So let's get right into that and move on. So I think he is going to be over the first Antiochus. In this case, we're not going to go with the first, just because this guy was just cut down by his aggrieved wife, ex-wife, and this guy did some major wrath of God stuff. And then, of course, here we're going to have to go with the Chinese emperors over this guy of Iberia. I mean, he was deified by the people that he helped, but then, of course, he was appealing to other kings for help as well. So, to me, that seems to kind of undercut his god status just a little bit. And then in this case, I think we'll have to go with the Chinese emperors over Antiochus IV. Of course, this guy rose to power by unifying all of China. No easy task, obviously. So we will move on to our next two, and that actually will round out the end of Division 1. So I think, no surprise, we're going to have to go with Jesus. Even though Simon actually established a Jewish state and was probably more in line with the Jewish Messiah, like I said, Jesus obviously has gone on to establish a much bigger and widely known and lasting legacy than Simon. So he will move on. In this one, I think, I don't even remember, what was going on with Theos again? This first guy? Man, it shows you just how fast this stuff just leaves your brain. Oh yeah, this guy's cult. I thought this was really interesting. I thought it was a really good insight into, like I was saying earlier, just how where this whole, these rituals and this worship of the dead thing comes from. It's very much the desire of, well, in many cases, it's very much the desire of the person being remembered. Of course, we know that's true with Cyrus the Great, the pharaohs, all of these guys. They're trying to establish the legacy. So yeah, I'm going to go with Roman emperors over Jesus. And I think we have to go with Jesus over the Roman emperors, simply because in a few hundred years from Caesar's time and Jesus' time, Christianity becomes the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, and thus, subsequently, the world. which is interesting since a lot of this began with the Jewish revolts against the Roman Empire. So this is an interesting one. This is kind of the West versus the East. This is the U.S. versus China. Man, what do we do here? I don't know. But I think we're just going to have to go with Jesus. It's pretty obvious, I think, his influence over the world. And this sets up a really interesting matchup here. So I think I am actually going to stop here now that I'm looking at this, because this is a great matchup to leave for the finals, and possibly go into a little deeper dive on these two figures and their role in not only historical events but even today, especially with Christianity today. Who are we holding up as higher at this moment? Is it Cyrus the Great or is it Jesus? I think that's a good question. So let's zoom back out. We are now at the end of the first division. This is where we are at, and this is where we are headed. So stay tuned next week for Division 2. These are the matchups that we will be seeing there. We have the Muhammad comes onto the scene, and so we have obviously Islamic prophets are now entering the fray. We have the continuation of Buddhism and Jewish messiahs. In this first division, we've only seen the Buddha himself, but there are others coming up. So stay tuned for that next week, and I hope to see you there. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye now.